Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Carl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey. Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets. Bryan coming at you. Thank you for being here. And I have got a treat for you today. I have got one of our superstar clients on the horn. We have a new program where we run local live events. We've had some people, really moving the needle and really kicking some butt. And Debbie would fit that bill in a very meaningful way. So I asked her, Debbie, could you jump on and could I interview you? And she said immediately, absolutely, I'd love to. But the only problem is Debbie's a busy gal. And we had to wait a number of weeks to be able to get here. So guess what this is? This is the week that we could actually schedule her. So again, you're in for a little bit of a treat. But before I get Debbie in here, let me just tell you who you're going to talk to. She's been in business for over 40 years, sales, marketing, business. She took a business from 45 to 125 salespeople, and during that time increased profits by, I can't remember quite the number, but it was over 500%. Translation, she crushed it. She was then asked to recruit up a national real estate franchise. She became so successful at that that she was recruited to be an elite leadership coach for the same company. She basically traveled around the world and did a job that many would define as heaven, and all their dreams coming true, where she was paid to basically travel around, speak, guide, and talk about just high-level business concepts and provide some leadership in the real estate world. But she has since shifted her focus, good news for us, to the business coaching and the business coaching world and coaching business owners. She's also now taken on her own team of business coaches through us. So that is pretty cool. So she lives to see the light bulb in others people's eyes. So without further ado, I want to introduce none other than Debbie Latuga. Debbie, how are you, my love?
Well, hey, Carl. Great to be here. Wow, that description doesn't sound like me, but I'll take it. That sounds like, who's that cool person? I'm like,
I know, she's impressive. Holy smokes. Well, in all sincerity, Debbie, I really appreciate, I know how busy you are and how crazy your schedule is with all the live events and everything that you got going on. So very, very happy to have you here. What I'm thinking is that we should just get straight into it. And I want to talk, so a lot of, when we meet a new coach, when we speak to a new coach, lead generation is always a little bit of a challenge, right? And I am curious, and those listening are curious. How do you think about lead generation? I know that you're right in the system, so talk to us a little bit about lead generation and the systems that you put into place and the ones that have worked for you.
Yeah, and you know what? Coaching sales for a number of years, sales is always about lead generation, and I look at a lot of the gurus in the coaching space right now. And I really don't see lead generation as being the front and center conversation that they're having. They're talking about your social media and this, that, and the other thing. And my experience is social media, you definitely want to participate. You want to have a strategy, you want to execute on it, but it's not the put food on your family's table today strategy. Yeah. It's the long game. That's the second challenge. We could talk about that a little bit later. But I find that for me and for salespeople and for coaches, the number one predictor of income is the amount of conversations you can have every day about what you do and how you help people. And if you have a strategy on social media where you're having conversations, now again, conversations, I put in quotes. It doesn't have to be literal. If someone emails you or texts you and you're having a dialogue back and forth, that's a conversation. I actually had a coach a couple of weeks ago when I said I was doing a live event, said, gee, original gangster, you're going old school. And I'm like, old school? What do you mean old school? If I'm out in the community having conversations, I'm accelerating the number of conversations I can have in a day. And I just feel like most coaches confuse that they need their branding and their website and their strategy. But to me, I'd rather they jump in and figure out how many conversations they can have every day. And there's a handful of ways that people can do it. And social media could be a part of it, but it shouldn't be the only thing. And I think that's where coaches sometimes go sideways, is that's their only thing. And then they're like, I don't know why I'm not making any money.
Yeah. Fair to say could I say this, Debbie? They hide behind their computer, stare at their phone, and experience pain.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can have a social media strategy that causes conversations, but I find there's a gap between what most coaches do and that strategy.
Beauty. So what are some other, so love it, love it, love it. So what other strategies do you got?
Well, and so in my mind, there's a handful of ways that coaches can choose to increase their number of conversations. There's the old-fashioned way, which I happen to love, which is smile and dial, which is really just picking up the phone, calling people you know, calling people you don't know. And they all have a conversion factor, right? And they all have a skill factor, but it absolutely works. If you start reaching out on the phone to business owners, you will get appointments, right? It's a numbers game. Networking, which I already mentioned, a great way to have a one-to-many instead of a one-to-one on a phone call. It's a one-to-many strategy. Live events, which I've recently fallen back in love with. I've always been in love with live events. It's just so magical when you can be in a room with people and you can have dialogue about their challenges and everybody's laughing and having a good time and learning. You know, live events is also a one-to-many sort of opportunity. And I think one of the hidden ways is actually JV partners, reaching out to people that would have your ideal client. So as a coach, who would have your ideal client in their database? You know, accountants, business resellers, like business brokers, you know,
Yep.
people that are working with business owners, any B2B, you know, media companies have business owners. Those are all kind of different lanes where you can figure out how to increase the number of conversations you have every week. You just got to pick your lane.
Yep. Love it. Keep going. I love it. I love it. You got more?
Well, I think that's one strategy, right? That's the first strategy, which is where I'm going to get my business from.
Yep.
I think the next strategy that business coaches kind of forget, I mean, what do we do for a living, right? We hold business owners accountable.
No.
So as
So
a
talk to
business
me.
coach,
Okay, may I? I'd like actually, because this is something I find in local legends you do magically. You know, you're kind of there, like you're holding yourself accountable, which is painfully obvious to everybody that watches you, and the amount of, the execution that you demonstrate. But yeah, I also find that you, and no doubt you know this, right? But you organically, hold somebody accountable. I'd like to hear from you. Like, what do you talk to me about accountability? Talk to me about accountability for business coaches.
well, we preach it, but do we do it, right? So as a business coach, who's your coach, right? Who is holding you accountable? My own painful experience, right? Launching my business coaching. And guess what the roadblock is to my success? Me.
Yeah.
I'm the roadblock, right? I'm the roadblock to my success. And there's a strange thing that happens when you share your vision and your goals with someone else. So early on, I realized I wasn't moving forward in building my coaching business. And I kind of went, I think I need a coach. I need some accountability. I need to tell somebody every week that I'm going to have 10 conversations a day. And then I need somebody asking me a week later, so your goal was 10 conversations a day. How'd you do? Well, I sucked. I was terrible. I didn't do it. Well, how many did you have? Well, Monday I had 5. Tuesday I had 3. Wednesday I had 6. And Thursday I blew it off completely. And I don't know what happened to Friday. So what that does is helps me stay accountable, right? When you have a coach, and I think business owners, our business coaches struggle if they don't go find accountability, right? We preach to business owners that hiring a coach helps you stay accountable. We know when we're working with a business owner and we say, okay, what's your goal this week? Well, this week I'm going to look at my expenses. Great. You're going to go through them and you're going to categorize them, right? And so when we meet next week and we can review it, right. We show up next week. They're like, oh, got so busy. You didn't do it. Right. So we're good at holding our clients accountable and helping them figure out ways to move forward. And yet as a coach, when we struggle, it's not our first go-to, right? Which is getting some accountability. Now, does it have to be a coach? No, it can be a peer, but sometimes peers will let you off the hook. So if you're going to work with a peer, you've got to say to that peer, don't let me slack. Don't let me say, yeah, I got really busy. And you say, okay, well, are you going to do better this week? No, you need some really good accountability. It can be a mastermind group. You can get together with other coaches. You can get together with other business owners. But having somebody that knows what your goals are, knows how you like to hide, right? How you like to pretend that you're working when you're not working, and will call you out on not taking action is really critical. That's what I love about Local Legends, right? So an opportunity that your company offers to help coaches kind of master the live event world. And I have the skill, I had the intention, and I wasn't taking action. And when I had the opportunity to join a group of people that were all committed to getting good at live events, only one reason why I joined, one reason, was recognizing that I need accountability. It's something I wanted to do, but I wasn't doing it. So if I had a group that I could be accountable with that would meet regularly where we could share our challenges and share our successes together, I knew that would move the needle for me. So that accountability is just so critical.
Love it. So, and that's like a bit of it's a mastermind group, is it not? Like at the end of the day, you got your peers in a group. Everybody's looking at one another roughly, once, twice a week, or even it could be every second week, by the way. But it's making the pressure public, right? But that's what
Correct.
it is.
It is a mastermind, but it's also directional, meaning it's not just us getting together, talking about our current challenges. It's got a goal, and the goal is mastering live events. And so we spent some time talking about our presentation and what that was going to look like. And we set some goals to practice with each other, right? So it's not just a mastermind. It's a specific mastermind that is moving towards a specific goal, right? It's lead generating together and holding each other accountable to helping get butts in seats, and then coming back weekly or bi-monthly to say, here's what's working, here's what's not working. What have you found? What have your successes been? What have your challenges been, right? And all of that, that magic of a mastermind that's working towards a single goal. It's a directional mastermind, right? To achieve a specific thing is so valuable.
Beautiful. Love it. Love it. Any more?
As far as accountability, if you don't have it, get it. And if you're a coach and you're struggling to fill your roster, find some accountability, right? Yeah. Find some accountability that will absolutely help you move that needle.
Yeah. Make the pressure public is a big part of what I just heard from you. Yeah. Right. Again, do it on Facebook groups, do it amongst your peers, join a group of like-minded people, pulling on the same rope, trying to go in the same direction, the way we do with Local Legends, and set some, make some lofty statements.
And my experience, and I'm sure your experience is the same, Carl. Like, we're highly accountable people. We love being accountable, and we love being called out when we're faking it, when we're phoning it in. We love it because we know that's going to help us. I've joined masterminds, I've participated in masterminds, and some of them aren't good. It's okay to join one and realize that you're not getting what you need. So find another one. If that's not good, find another one. If that's not good, don't quit on yourself.
Yeah.
And don't stay where you're not getting value. It's okay to go, you know what? I don't think this mastermind has what I need. I thank you for what you offer. This is not for me. And this is not, I think sometimes we get in these groups and then we have this sense of obligation to stay. No, this is your business, your success, your family's legacy. If that mastermind isn't the right fit, quit it and go find one that gives you what you need. It's okay, because this is your legacy that you're defending. And if it's not right, find another one and don't quit. Keep looking until you find that mastermind or that coach or that group that works for you.
Love it. Love it. Love it. And again, their psychology tends to be their chokehold. And what I love about coaching is when a business owner has a business coach, and the one that you just defined earlier, that does not let them, doesn't give them a pass and doesn't show up as their best friend, but shows up as dad, or mom, and has some, rules of engagement. What the client always says, what the business owner says with ridiculous consistency is, I did it because I knew you were calling. I did it because I knew we had this appointment today. I did it because I committed to it. I told you about it. It's written down. It's in the notes. It was sent to me from the software. And that's the reason why I did it. You know what I mean? That is where, again, it's just accountability 101, right? And that's,
well, how many business owners know they need to look at their expenses and know they need to figure out their marketing and know they need to do it? Without accountability, though, a year passes, another year passes, another year passes, and they don't make the changes that many of them know they need to do, but they need that accountability and that support, because accountability is just support. And any coach that sets up a new coaching relationship properly, which, one of the questions I like to ask is, how honest would you like me to be with you in our coaching agreement, now our coaching relationship? And very often you'll get a 10, sometimes you'll get a 9 or 8. They'll say, well, could you just be a little bit nice when you deliver the honesty? Guess what happens when they start slacking and phoning it in? You can remind them that you had this conversation. Hey, Bob, listen, at the beginning of our relationship, we talked about how we were committing to each other to be really honest. And sometimes when I'm delivering something that's honest, it can feel like it's a little painful. I just want you to know that I want to share something with you that may be difficult for you to hear, but I'm committed to your success. And I think you've been phoning it in. Now, that's not a judgment. It's an observation. So what are we going to do to get through that? And that, as long as you set that up in the beginning of your relationship, you can have those difficult conversations and be honest with each other, because you, like you said, setting those expectations at the beginning of the relationship allows you to deliver any sort of difficult to hear message because you've already had the conversation at the beginning.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So I hear a coach, business coach, is getting cranking, and they're sitting there going, yeah, Debbie, I get it. I got it. But I'm committing to X, Y, Z, picking up the phone, sending out the messages, doing social media, it's a Facebook ad campaign. It's a LinkedIn campaign, but I'm not very good. They have a limiting belief or a story between their ears that they keep telling themselves, that, oh, I'm no good at this. In other words, they're not going to be able to deliver it perfectly. Speak to me about something I've heard you talk about, is executing imperfectly. Speak to me about that, would you?
Yeah, it's, I think school really did not serve us well as entrepreneurs or as coaches, in that we were only rewarded for right answers. In fact, they never even allowed us to go back and correct the incorrect ones so that we could learn what our mistakes were. But business and being an adult and being a business coach is about taking imperfect action. Look, when you were learning to ride a bike, you were terrible. If you were learning to swim, you're choking a whole lot on water over and over and over again until you figure it out. But something about that kid's brain has us laser focused on, I'm figuring this out. I'm going to swim. I see my friends swimming. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to ride my bike. I see my friends riding my bike. I don't care how many times I'm fall. There's no question. We're getting back on. We're getting back on. We're getting back on. And yet I find analysis paralysis or waiting until you're great at something to start something. And I think that comes from tests. You were only measured on one specific day if you could get the right answer and you could recall the right answers. And that's trained us to not take risk, to not try our best. And I find that the most successful business coaches are the ones that say, I'm going to figure it out by getting on the bike. So smile and dial. I'm terrible at cold calls.
Debbie,
What's that, Carl?
I love the so, I love the I might make a meal of this, but it's successful companies are owned by C students who hire A students to manage B students. Right?
Exactly.
It's like school. It's like, how effective was school? I got bad news for you. So
people are like, well, I'm bad at cold calls. I can promise you, if you make 1,000, you're going to get better at it. And by the way, go on YouTube. There's tons of like how to make cold call script. But everyone's bad at the beginning, and people forget. Coaches are bad. I got fired in my early coaching business. Not that I was necessarily a bad coach, but I didn't deliver information in a way that was palatable, or I didn't set standards at the beginning for the business owner. So when they weren't moving forward because they weren't showing up, they fired me because they said I was a bad coach. Well, I didn't set the expectations for them to show up. But everybody's bad at cold calls in the beginning. Everybody's mediocre at networking at the beginning. Well, I got a lot of business cards, but I didn't follow up, or I didn't have a CRM. I got the cards and I never did anything. I didn't know what to say after the networking event when I was calling them. So I didn't make the call. So we get that analysis paralysis that we're bad at things. I say, be bad at it and do it anyway. The first time I stood up in front of people to speak, I was sweating and shaking and stumbling over my words. You know how you get good at being a public speaker? You do it. That's how you get good at it. Everybody sucks at the beginning, and it's okay. The challenge is we allow the fact that we're bad at it to give us an excuse to not do it. But all the things that we start that we've never done before, we're bad at. So I say, make bad calls, attend networking events and be mediocre at the follow-up. Do a live event and totally flop. Like get up there and twist your words and forget to ask for the business. But guess what? Each time you do it, you get better. You know, form a JV partnership with an accountant and then don't get any leads from it. And then call them up and saying, hey, I realize I haven't gotten any leads. Like, what's going on? Like the way you get good at all of this stuff is by having the courage to do it when you're not good and learning from mistakes. I'd rather take a coach that on day one was willing to pick up the phone, having no idea what to say, with the goal of getting an appointment, than a coach that spends 3 to 6 months preparing and getting ready. Because that coach that calls on day one is going to have a client in 6 weeks. And that coach that's getting ready in 6 months is probably not going to have a client in a year. You know, it's being willing to do it badly or imperfectly. And then guess what? Get peers. Get accountability. Call up somebody that's good at cold calls. Like we can network with people that are good at the things that we're not good at. But don't wait to get good at it before you start, because even if you practice, you're going to be terrible when you do start. So you may as well start today and then get good on the job. Get good while you're doing it.
Yeah. I always say that you'll be remembered for what you refuse to give up on. And what you need to do is isolate what that is. You know what I mean? Is that going to be helping business owners? Is that going to be social media? Is that going to be X, Y, Z, helping chiropractors get referrals, whatever it's going to be, helping local business owners, could just be, your blanket mission. But again, you're going to be, you don't get, it's easy. Things are easy to start, hard to finish. It's right. It's what you finish. So actually okay. So let's talk about refusing to give up, or like Local Legends as an example, right? Program, running local live events, to do, always stressing that, look, this is, sure, you're going to get clients, short term and whatnot, but really what this is about, Tony Robbins gets paid for who he is, not what he does. That's how he can command 7-figure fees with a, waiting list, to do. I feel like you're really playing the long game in there, and I think that's something that's kind of your strength of yours. Could you talk to a business coach that's listening in about managing the psychology and whatnot, and just really understanding that they're playing the long game and deciding that they want to play the long game?
Well, I think, and I often say that we live in a microwave society, which means if we can't put something in the microwave in 30 seconds and be able to eat it, and
Yeah.
then what? I got to cook it for potatoes in the oven take an hour. I got to wait an hour to eat a potato. That's like just takes too long. And I think too often entrepreneurs, guess what? Business owners are exactly the same, but business owners and coaches, if you're playing the long game, you're not going to quit. Here's what I see coaches do. And listen, hi, my name's Debbie. I'm the roadblock to my own success. I play all these games. The reason I know all this stuff is because I've failed at it way longer than other people have tried to be successful at it, right? I'm a master at failing at all these things. That's why I've figured out some of these things, right? Because I got really good at being bad at it. But I think too often, listen, if you were launching a business today, and let's say it's a brick and mortar business, you wouldn't think you'd be profitable this year. You would hope you wouldn't lose the couple $100,000 you had put aside to launch this business. And then year two, you're wishing and praying you get close to break even. And year three, you're hoping you're making a little bit of profit and you're not out of business already. But when we start our business coaching business, we have this mistaken belief that I'm going to hang my shingle and the clients are going to come out of the woodwork. Listen, all the lead generation strategies I talked about work. I know business coaches that smile and dial. That's the way they get their business. 100% of their activities, they cold call. And that's how they get clients. And then I know business owners that network. That's all they do. All they do is network. They build relationships and they get clients. I know business coaches that do live events. That's all they do. Live events. That's what they do. Now you can, and I know business coaches that do JV partners and they just go out and build relationships with people who have business owners in their database. All of them work. But so often business coaches struggle to play the long game. I don't care which one you pick. Pick one, pick two, pick three. But I'll see them like, oh, I posted on social media and I didn't get any business, so that doesn't work. Or I ran some ads and it didn't work, so running ads doesn't work. Or I've been on LinkedIn a year and it's not working. Well, they all work, but you have to find that funnel and that pathway. And too often, just like business owners, we dabble, we snorkel, we don't scuba dive, we do a little bit of cold calling this week, we don't get any appointments, we're like, oh, I got hung up on, that doesn't work. I'm going to networking. So we go out, we join a couple networking groups, maybe we do some networking online, and we do that for 2 or 3 months, and we don't have any clients, and we're like, oh, that doesn't work. And then we pivot too quickly. All of them work. They all work really, really well. You can build your entire business in any one of those lanes, but you have to commit to the mastery. So if you're going to do live events, then find some accountability, find other people doing live events, do some analysis. Like, why is that not working? Maybe I'm not good at the presentation. Maybe I'm not good at getting butts in seats. Maybe I'm not good at the close. Maybe I'm not good at post-close. Maybe I'm not good at asking for figure it out. Like, where is the gap? And if you're committed to the lane and you're committed to finding out the solution or where your gap is, no matter what, invite peers to come sit in the room or to watch recordings. Get someone to help you figure it out. But they all work. But we're too willing in this microwave society to change lanes when we find a lane that doesn't work. They all work. Pick a lane and commit to mastery.
Yeah, I love it. It reminds me of, your path is more difficult because your calling is higher. I think, again, you don't become a business coach by accident. I always say, again, what leads you to become a business coach is generally pain, and frankly, a lot of it. Mm-hmm. It's like anxiety. I talk to a coach and they're stressed out or they're anxious. And I'm like, it's not anxiety, it's just that you know that you're called for so much more, and you're not, you know what I mean? And you're not performing up to that level that you set for yourself subconsciously. You know what I mean? Again,
Yeah.
it's not anxiety. It's a
Mhm.
higher level calling. And again, and by the way, either reduce your calling, which I don't think anybody listening to this is going to go for that option, but that's an option.
Right.
Or we got to step up. So when Debbie says, "Look, smile and dial," I know people like cringing. Oh my gosh, the most successful people in the world. You go the Tony Robbins, the Dan Kennedys, or most actually. Let's go most successful people in our world, right? Because I don't want to put Warren Buffett in the cold calling category, although I guarantee he was doing direct sales. Ray Dalio, etc. Um,
Mhm.
but it's people that were in direct sales, people that knocked on doors selling, vacuums and MLM, right? It's not a
Mhm.
coincidence, right? It is
Right.
not a coincidence. But anyways, I love that. So anything else around playing the long game? What would you say?
Well, it's there's one other component that's not really in the lead generation long game, which is kind of what we're talking about. But
Yep.
another, I talk with business coaches every day and I say, what are your challenges? And here's something that's shocking to me as a business coach to hear other business coaches say this, but it's also very common. And they'll say, I hate to sell.
Yeah.
And just like all of these lead generation things, sales is a skill that can be mastered without feeling slimy, from coming from contribution, from being consultative. I don't sell anybody anything. I don't sell anybody anything. I talk to business owners and I try to find out if they have problems that I can solve. I don't say, hi, I'm a business coach. I can help you with this and I can help you. I don't pitch. I ask, tell me about your challenges. Oh, yeah. Where our profit's down a little bit. Oh my gosh, how many years has your profit been dropping? Well, gosh, a couple of years. I said, is it dropping like 10% a year? He goes, no, just a couple percentage points a year. Awesome. Well, that sounds really challenging. So what have you done to try to stop that, to try to fix it? Well, we ran some marketing last year. I'm not pitching. But I am pitching. I am dancing because I'm trying to identify, do they have a pain that I can help them with? I can't sell anybody anything, but I can identify if they have a pain that I have a solution for. But the first thing I have to do is identify they have a pain. Now, I'm not pitching, but I am because I'm in discovery. I'm not going to sell you anything. I'm going to identify, do you have a pain that I can solve? And if you do, I'm going to say, oh my gosh, the things you're talking about, drop in revenue and marketing that's not working, that's what I help business owners with every day. Hey, could we get together for an hour? I think I could show you how you might be able to increase your profit without spending a whole lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, by the way, that's a pitch, but it doesn't feel like it because it's coming from contribution. So sales is a skill that business coaches can learn, but they have to be committed to the long game. Like, okay, I don't like to sell. So I've got to figure this out because if I'm going to be a coach, I'm going to have to make pitches. So where can I find help in pitching? Where can I find solutions? Local legends was an opportunity for me to get good at the system of standing up and talking to people. I can stand up and talk to people, but I need a system. I need a system that's going to help me. So if you want to be a business coach, you're going to have to learn how to pitch. But there's places in this world where you can get help and support, focus being one of them, to get help and support on some of those things that you feel like you might have gaps in, right? So it's if you want to serve clients, you have to be committed to the skill of getting good at the things that you'll need to get good at, and you'll need to play the long game in order to be able to do what you said at the beginning, which is business coaches are business coaches because they have a calling. Well, if you have a calling, you have to be committed to the skill that's going to help you change lives, right? And that is playing that long game.
Yeah, but Debbie just said something super important, laced throughout. She mentioned it multiple times, but it was laced throughout. Business is about identifying a problem and then solving it, right? And
Yeah.
again, you identify again, like just offering a solution. Like if you're standing at a bus stop and I come by and offer you a Band-Aid, you'd looked at me like I was strange. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, right? Like get this guy
Yeah.
away from. If I
Yeah.
accidentally pricked your arm and there was a little bit of blood rolling down, or somebody else did, and I pulled out a Band-Aid and gave it to you, you'd be like, oh my gosh, thank you. What unbelievable timing, right? But
Right.
the offer of a solution without identifying the problem, the Band-Aid without the cut arm, right? The business plan without the identification of, hey, here's the hole in my business, and understand. Like people don't want you to understand. They want to feel understood, right?
Mm-hmm.
So nuts and bolts, though, what Debbie just said, really, really important, is business is about identifying problems and solve it. And by the way, if you tell me how big the problem is, I'm going to show you a bigger business. If you're going to show me a big problem that a lot of people have that are easy to identify, I'm going to show you even bigger business, right?
Right.
Like again, so the bigger, it's Elon Musk 101, right? He just says he identifies massive problems and then tries to solve them, right? And whether or not getting to Mars is a problem, not sure. That's one that I woke up with. But at the end of the day, he sees it as something we got to do, right? He wants to colonize Mars. He's just, the alien trying to get home.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, he's building a tunnel between LA and New York, right? And again, he sees it as a problem and he's looking to solve it. Again, electric cars, he identified that as a problem and then he solved it. So for those listening, again, what Debbie just said, there was magic lace throughout that. I hope you picked that up. It is just, she's identifying problems left, right, and center. She does it with confidence. She does it with passion. And business owners, when she sells them business coaching, guess how it ends? With them saying thank you, right? So again, you're doing a good service. So that being said, you mentioned the live events, local legends. I want to what has been the benefits for you of running local legends, or what do you feel like the benefits are of running local live events for a business coach that's listening?
I think there's just so many, right? So it's one of the pathways to generate leads, right? So if you're picking a lane, and you don't have to pick one lane, you could pick cold calling and live events. You don't have to pick one, but you want to commit to that mastery. And, prior to being a business coach, when I was flying around the world and teaching these boot camps, you said it was like a dream job. It was the dreamiest dream job that I've ever had in my life. And I loved it, right? And here's why. Because as a coach with a coach's heart, when you can stand up in front of a room and you can, through your words, impact them, and their words, not mine, change their life, right? People come up to you afterwards and say, oh my God, this changed my life. And they're crying. They have tears in their eyes. That's the coach's heart, right? That's why we're all coaches, is because when you impact someone else and you change their life, that's what we live for, right? We live for that person that couldn't see a pathway forward. We help them see it. And then their gratitude for how you've changed their world is immense. So doing live events, because again, I like to lead generate efficiently. I'm a one-to-many kind of gal. I can smile and dial, but that's one person to one person. I like one-to-many. It's more efficient. So if I can stand in front of a room and put 10 butts in a seat and then talk to business owners about shared challenges, by the way, watch the magic happen between them, right? Because now this is a mini mastermind. They're now networking at a really high level because we're talking about business, not how's your kids and that kind of stuff, but we're talking about business topics. And these business owners are networking with each other, and we're having this dialogue. Yes, it looks like I'm standing up in front of the room, but it really is a conversation. And it opens their minds to solutions that they've never seen before. And they kind of leave the event like banging their hand against their head going, oh my God, just never saw this way. I never thought this way before. No one ever helped me think this way before. And it's a way to really impact a community, right? When you can stand up in front of a room in your local community where you live and you can impact the business owners that work where you live, it creates this momentum, right? So local legends, they start to tell their friends, and then they start to tell their friends, and then the Chamber of Commerce finds that you're out there in the community helping business owners, and they come to you and they say, hey, we hear you're helping business owners. Can you come to the chamber and help our business owners? It becomes this like snowball effect. Now, did I get a client from the first time I did it? No. But it's the long game, right? That if you like doing that and you love impacting your community in that way, it just snowballs. And I could see that from the very beginning of the opportunity with Local Legends, that this was a lifelong skill that actually can change a community, right? Because you do one this week and one next week and two next month and two the month after that. And slowly but surely this momentum builds. And selfishly, it builds my name and my credibility, right? And it starts to get the word out. I don't have the yellow pages anymore that I could say Debbie Latuga, business coach. I don't have a way to get out there and market myself in my community, but you do live events and you start to build your own name and your credibility. So you're changing your business community and building momentum for yourself. Because listen, I love to change the lives of business owners, but make no mistake, what I do that I love is also about building a legacy for me and my family. Like this is not just completely altruistic. This is also for me and my legacy, right? And so I want to be able to do something that builds momentum. Smile and dial, you don't get momentum built. You do if you start cycling back through the people that you've called, you can start building momentum that way. But it's a different sort of momentum, and live events really can build momentum for you as a coach, as being seen as a local leader, a local legend. And then over time, you're not working so hard, and people start coming to you and start saying, hey, I heard that you help business owners. Oh, where'd you hear that from? Well, my friend Sally was at one of your workshops, and, so I'm giving you a call. So it really builds that momentum as a coach, where you could potentially at some point work by referral only because you built up so much momentum.
Yeah. Hello. Hey, could I just jump in there? Because I want to, the presentation that you do, and the guy and the gal that puts her hand on her head and goes, oh my heavens, right? Mm-hmm. I wasn't there, but I know what happened. And it was not some elite hardcore Facebook hack. It was something, it was fundamentals, right? Like example is goal setting. And pull out your wallet. Can I see your goals? Yeah. Let me see, your phone, and let me see the goals written in your note section. Do you know what I mean? Like that's not there. Time management, it's 80-20. Right? Or it's 80% of your revenues come from 20% of your clients, but which 20% of the clients? And of course, they haven't taken the time to do that. Right. So when you're doing the present, it's not about the mistake that I see some making is they're shown. They don't think they know the really high end strategies that we know. So therefore, they're not qualified to do the presentation. And I'm telling you that hand on head, oh my God, can you help me? Comes when you deliver the fundamentals that they're not doing. And the other thing, Debbie, like what about when you play Monopoly properly, right? What do? You buy everything. There's nothing that you wouldn't buy. Really important, right? When you buy everything you land in a Monopoly, what happens to your cash? And the answer is you run out of it. What happens when you run out of your cash in Monopoly? You got to flip over all the cards and you got to borrow money from the bank. So in other words, halfway through Monopoly, if you're playing it properly, right? There'll be others that look a lot better halfway through, but if you're playing Monopoly properly halfway through, you feel like you're losing. Right. Guess what ends up happening in the end? Those who own the most real estate end up coming ahead. And of course, there's anomalies and, but it's an 80-20 thing. If you play Monopoly properly, right, you will win. So, but halfway through, you feel like you're losing. And that's a very important you know what I mean? When you're doing local live events, and because one of the things you mentioned, like referrals, right? Like if you do when I did a live events, I was hell bent on getting 2 referrals per person, right? I wasn't hell bent on the appointments. I wasn't hell bent on the money. I wasn't hell bent on, the clients to do my profile. I was hell bent on the referrals. And I found that if I got 2 referrals per person who showed up, everything else fell into place. And that meant that I must have been doing a bang up job, as in the money, the clients to do, all looked after itself. So if you think about it, if you do one event and you get 10 people there and you get 2 referrals per person, guess what? You've got 20 people to follow up with. If you do
Right.
2 events, you got 40, and then you got 60, and then you got 80, and then you got 100, 120, 140, 160, and soon you've got a whole bunch. By the way, are they all going to come? And the answer is hard no, right? But
Right.
the closer you are to the finish line, the faster you go. Think of the marathon, right? Sprint
Right.
at the last, after running all day. So when you go to do a local live event and you've already got 3 people registered coming, it's so much easier to close, to get the other 7 versus when you're starting with a blank slate. Truthfully, it can just feel significantly harder than it actually is, right? So
Yeah.
those referrals that you mentioned, I want to make sure they pick up what you're putting down there, because that again becomes a lot of the magic. And then not to mention that the accountant that you invite, and then he's got 400 clients or she's got 400 clients, or the promotional company or the networking organization or the business broker, the owner of the magazine, the owner of the radio station, the owner of the billboard company, you know what I mean? Like all the joint ventures that could come. And then imagine what their referrals and that joint venture could look like. But at the end of the day, I really wanted to, when you play Monopoly properly, halfway through, you feel like you're losing. If you're doing local live events, weekly, bi-weekly, and really putting in, I promise you, there's going to be a period where you're like, oh my gosh, does this make sense? Am I nuts? Am I, doing this all wrong? Is this ever going to start to work? Am I ever going to get traction? Is that, those referrals ever going to start to flow? Am I ever going to start getting paid for who I am instead of what I do, kind of thing, like Tony Robbins? And you got to go back to what Debbie talked about last, and that was her long game strategy. She doesn't think in, this week, this month. She's thinking in quarters, she's thinking in years, she's thinking in, debatably, 10-year blocks. So that's how you become a local legend. You do not become a local legend overnight. But so I want you to continue. You were on a roll there talking about local live events. What do you think? Anything else do you want to add to that, or can you talk to us a little more about local live events?
Well, I think there's a couple different things, right? It's definitely the long game, right? You're the first one that I did, nobody showed. So listen, it's not about, preaching that everything works perfect. You got to figure out how to get butts and seats. And the first couple events you do, you're kind of not so good at it, right? But it's okay, because we're playing the long game. So I learned that's not the way you do it, right? You got to do it differently. But you mentioned something that I just want to point out. You mentioned about, the 10 people in the room and the 2 referrals that you have 20 people to follow up with. You have 30 people, because you have the 10 that were in the room plus the 20. But will all those 20 then come to a live event? No, they won't. But here's where I think some coaches miss the long game. But they might know somebody that would come to your event, but they might know a business owner that needs help from a coach. Like, I think sometimes we get so laser focused on we're calling someone to come to my live event. And when they say no, we miss the opportunity that they might turn us on to somebody that would come to a live event, or we miss the opportunity to say, well, who do you know that would benefit by coming to my event? Or who do you know that would benefit having a conversation with a business coach, right? When we get laser focused on, I got to follow up with my 20 referrals to see if they come to my live event. And I call that turning over rocks, right? Business is everywhere. Every single person you have a conversation with every day can lead you to a client, to a solution, like every single one, if you will have that conversation and broaden your view. So in that long event, that long view or that long game, it's calling those 20 people saying, hey, would you like to come to my live event? No. I just launched my business. Oh my gosh, what kind of business? Now I'm looking for where's the opportunity for me to help this person, or where's the opportunity that this person may connect me with someone that could come to my live event or is actively looking for a business coach, right? So we sometimes get laser focused in that long game, and we forget that every conversation we have can lead us to somebody that may move our business forward.
Yeah. Can I speak to that? Like, if you think,
Sure.
Let's just use $2,000 a month, 24 grand a year is the frame. And of course, there's coaches that are significantly more than that, 10 grand a month, 100 grand, is the lowest fee. And then there's others getting going and they're more, 6 grand a year, 12 grand a year. They kind of feel like they're still in the sandbox. Let's use 24 grand. Let's just assume the coach is already going. They're doing a good job. They kind of got their mojo. One person, referrals are great clients, no doubt. Hopefully that's not a surprise to anybody listening, right? So you get a client, and then you get a client through a referral. Frankly, if you get a client through a referral that comes to a live event, you've got yourself a bit of a home run potential client. But if you get one client that through a referral, what is that? That's just 24 grand. But what if that one client then gives you 2 referrals?
Right.
That's $72,000 through that one. But the trick is you got to find the one individual that refers the one individual that will bring you 2 extra. And believe me, if you're doing a bang up job with your coaching clients, referrals, those of you that are well into it, Debbie knows all about this, right? But referrals are like, kind of like if I'm crushing it with you, my first question is who do they work with before they work with you? And then who do they work with after they work with you, right? So let's just use a lumber mill as an example, or somebody selling lumber, right? Call it 2x4s for real simple, anybody can understand this. Well, who would benefit? You're coaching the guy who's selling 2x4s, right? And plywood to build a house, build a garage. Well, who buys from them? And then that would be the carpenter. So if you're really helping the company selling 2x4s, and then you go, well, look, this guy builds, 3 garages a year, 10 garages a year. Well, what if he doubled his output? What would happen with his business with you? And he goes, well, it would double. So guess what? Invite me to work with that guy, right? And then what about the person after that? The guy who is selling, selling the renovations, doing, selling the renovation. Well, now get that person to then all of a sudden, like that one client that's like, well, if he's selling way more and then this guy is building way more, your business is going to go through the roof. So who benefits from you doing well, or how do you do well by them benefiting? Again, the carpenter building significantly more garages. He's going to buy significantly more wood. Well, we're killing it. Recommend me to that guy, right? So you have the strategy around referrals is what I'm going through. So to think that you would get a $24,000 client and then it would be like some pipe dream to be able to get them to refer 2 people to you is the exact opposite. 100% the wrong way to look at it. One client at 24 grand can become $72,000 very quickly when you do a bang up job and have the guts to then ask for the referral and then strategically know who to ask. Don't just ask for a friend, which could be fine, but ask for somebody who would benefit from them benefiting.
Right.
So anyway, so there you go. Again, one client could be 72 grand. Do your darn events, right?
And that's why I like local legends, because to me, it's the most efficient way to accelerate referrals, right? One to many, when you have one conversation and provide value. Now, networking can do that as well, but when you're actually presenting a live event or a workshop or something like that, that creates that momentum in your community. And people start talking about, I've had people stand up at networking events saying, oh my God, I went to her workshop. You guys got to go. If you haven't gone, you got to go. You don't even know what you're missing if you haven't been yet. And unprompted, so right? So
you become uber referable. That's what happens when you're doing a local, but you got to be consistent. Again, part of local legends is that you don't show up. The mistake that people make is they run a live event and then they decide how it went. And then they decide if they're going to do another one, and 3 weeks to a month pass before they get around to then getting their next event together. Now there's no consistency and you're not uber referable when you're not consistent. So you got to be insanely consistent. And that's part of the local legends and the accountability and the holding the feet to the fire. So there you go. So I tell you what, coming towards the end here, any final thoughts for our fine folks listening from Debbie?
I would probably say, find some accountability. If you're struggling to fill your roster, find some accountability and get some help on what some of the gaps are. And pick your lane for where you're going to get your leads from, and then track it. How many calls do you make? Write it down. Looking at it, I was years ago looking to start to do some small triathlons, and I was an okay swimmer, not a spectacular swimmer. So I got a book on how to swim better, how to swim faster. I was already a runner. I already was a biker, but I hadn't really swam. And one of the strategies was count your strokes. And that will make you a better swimmer. And I'm like, how the heck does counting your strokes make you a better swimmer?
Yeah.
And the idea is tracking your results, because obviously if you have less strokes, you're more efficient in the water. Now, obviously this is in a pool, right? So if you got 30 strokes to the end of the pool, and if you're able to do 28 strokes, it means you're more efficient. You're actually gliding through the pool more efficiently. And I said, but how does counting the strokes help? And they said, you're not going to believe this, but by counting it, you'll improve. I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But I'm dumb, so I counted. And, 28, 28, 28, 28, 29, 27. Ooh, 28, 27, 28, 27, 27, 27, 26, 28, 26. I'm like, holy cow. Like, was I working on technique? No. Was I working on skill? No. I was counting. So whatever lead generation you're doing, count it, track it, look at the numbers. I promise you, you will get better simply because, and don't we tell our business owners to do the same thing? Track your results, look at your numbers, because that will make improvements. It's the same kind of thing. So get accountability, pick a lane, and track your results.
Well, I'm going to tell you something funny. So literally, so boxing is something that I love to box, right? So when I box, I got my buddy Gary Lightbourne, he's fought Tyson and Holyfield and Lennox Lewis and George Foreman. He's sparring partners, by the way. He fought at Madison Square Garden. He's legit. But at the end of the day, he sparred with all these guys, right? He was the guy crazy enough to jump in there. And, but anyway, so when we're boxing, what I was doing is I always counted, basically I would count to 100 and then 200. And I think we got it. Like he's like, I've never seen, sparred with Tyson and nobody punches for as long as you. And I'd punch 2,000 times and not stop. Right. And I started at 100 and it was a lot. Right. So now I've got an electric surfboard. And I, just love ripping around, surfing in the open water. Right. But anyway, so I'm doing turns. So think of a slalom course. Well, guess what I started to do? Count. Right. So again, now I got to 100. Now I can do 200 turns in a row. Right. Which, by the way, I'm very, very proud of. Right. On a foil. Does it at the end of the day. But guess what? I started at like 4 and would fall off the foil. Right. Now I'm doing 200. This is on calm water. Mind you, but at the end of the day, 200 in a row, right? Without coming off the foil. Pretty cool. And then, so literally, I'm talking like in the last 24 hours, I told my wife, so meditating is something that I'm, working on that does not come naturally in any way, shape, or form. And I told her about that and how, I count to 100 and it's always worked really, really well, especially when I boxed and when I'm doing my, when I'm out there surfing. But anyway, so guess what I did? So I just think about my nose and the skin, that right in between my two nostrils. I concentrate right there. By the way, this is a little bit of a meditation hack for those that can't meditate. Maybe try it. But at the end of the day, so I do breaths, right? And I come, out of, just in and out of my nose, right? Which there's a lot of health benefits to that, by the way. And I concentrate on the area in between my nostrils, right? Sounds weird. But anyway, so what I did, guess what? I count to 100. And by the way, did I get, like at 12, I fall off and then I get to 18 and then I'm like, oh my God, like what just happened? And then but instead of starting at 0, remember the closer you get to the finish line, the faster you'll go. So what I like to do is with the meditation, with like surfing, by the way, I would start back at 0 because I can actually do it, but meditating, I'm battling, right? I'm still in that embryonic, the sandbox. And at the end of the day, so to give myself a pass, if I get to 12, I start again at 13. And if I get to 24, I start again at 25. But guess what? I am breathing in and out of my, my nose, concentrating on that little area. And I just said, look, I'm just going to go to 100. And guess what? It's unbelievable results, quite frankly. I'm just like zoning out like I've never been able to do. And then, of course, the numbers, eventually, you know what I mean? The goal is not to be counting. The goal is to just completely zone out and fully meditate. And I'm getting there. I don't want to make out like I am the best at it because I most certainly am not. But there's a little hack for me. So you talked about how did I get there? You're like when you're swimming, if you literally do nothing more and nothing less, like the number you had was 30 down to 27, down to 26, I think, and it literally happened organically from nothing more and nothing less than counting your strokes. And I have found the same thing to be with boxing, to be with, surfing in the open water, and now meditating. And there's other things that I apply that with. But so there you go. So Just count, folks. Just count.
Yeah, and lead gen. Your lead gen will get better if you count.
Yeah, there we go. Number of calls. And again, and don't set your goal. Actually, I was talking to one of our high-end guys earlier today, and I'm like, so what are your goals to do? And I was like, okay, don't set the goal of the outcome is not that. That should be there, and I want that to be the North Star. But I said, what you need to do is set the goal around how many calls you're going to make, how many messages you're going to send out, how many bums on seats you're going to get, like how many people you're going to call to come to your local live event. Set that as your goal because you can control it. You can't control whether or not I come. You can't control whether or not I sign up, and you can't control whether or not I buy. You can influence it highly by doing a bang up job, but you can't control it. What you can control is your activity. Set your goals around your activity and then watch what happens.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
So there we go. I love it. Debbie, as always, I knew you were going to deliver, and you did that in spades. So on behalf of Focus.com and Business Coaching Secrets and all of the coaches listening, I wanted to thank you for showing up today and bringing us your magic.
Thanks, Carl. Listen, you're very passionate in helping business coaches succeed. So it's an honor to be invited and share what wisdom I may have. So this has been a great experience. I've had a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Awesome, Debbie. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
All right. Take care.
Carl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at Focused.com.